Hi. Guy, tonight we find ourselves at a street corner at Kyoto's outer gate, the air thick with the scent of cherry blossoms and anticipation. You probably won't survive this. Around you, a crowd gathers. Lanterns paint the twilight scene, casting long, dancing shadows, but they can't hide the glint of excitement in the eyes of the onlookers. It's the eve of a poetry contest, where Kyoto's finest wordsmiths will trade verses in pursuit of glory, or at least a free round of sake, and you wouldn't want to miss this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The year is 1683. Japan basks in the tranquility of the Edo period. Imagine, if you will, the rhythmic clip-clop of Geta sandals on the cobblestones, the murmur of conversations blending with the strum of a shamisen somewhere nearby. The Tokugawa shogunate, established in 1603, ushered in this long period of peace and stability, fostering a flourishing of arts and culture. For almost 3 centuries, Japan, under the watchful eye of the shogun, experienced an unprecedented era of prosperity and artistic growth. Samurai, no longer constantly engaged in warfare, turned their energies to perfecting their crafts, whether that be swordsmanship, calligraphy, or, as we'll see tonight, the delicate art of poetry. This piece allowed for a renaissance, a vibrant explosion of creativity that touched every corner of Japanese society. From the tea ceremony to kabuki theater, from woodblock prints to haiku, the Edo period was a golden age, a time of refinement and elegance. We stand here, just outside the city's embrace. These outer gates of Kyoto, like the famed Rashomon, were not just physical barriers. They were symbolic thresholds between the outside world and the refined imperial capital, places where travelers shed the dust of the road and prepared to enter a world of order and ritual. Think of them as liminal spaces, imbued with a certain mystique, a sense of transition. Historians still argue whether their original function was more defensive, spiritual, or simply bureaucratic. Were they built to repel invaders, to ward off evil spirits, or merely to regulate the flow of commerce and people into the city? Perhaps it was a combination of all three. These gates, silent witnesses to centuries of history, hold within their weathered timbers tales of emperors and shoguns, of samurai and merchants, of pilgrims and poets, all seeking entry into the heart of Japan. Observe the crowd gathering around us. Merchants hawk their wares, children chase paper butterflies, and lovers whisper secrets under the watchful gaze of the moon. Notice the women in their vibrant kimonos, their hair adorned with intricate ornaments. Women during the samurai period, while often confined to domestic roles, played a vital part in maintaining family honor and lineage. Their influence, though often exercised behind the scenes, was considerable. They managed households, educated children, and preserved cultural traditions. Some, like Iroha Matsudaira, a lady-in-waiting to Empress Meisho, are remembered for their intelligence, their political maneuvering, and their impact on courtly life. While history books often focus on the exploits of samurai and shoguns, it's important to remember the vital role women played in shaping the social and cultural landscape of this era. They were the keepers of tradition, the guardians of family values, and, in some cases, powerful figures in their own right. The air crackles with anticipation. The poetry contest is about to begin. The lanterns, swaying gently in the breeze, cast flickering shadows that dance across the faces of the onlookers. You can almost taste the excitement, the nervous energy that permeates the crowd. Who will emerge victorious tonight? Who will craft the most evocative haiku, the most poignant tanka? Will it be a seasoned veteran, a master of wordplay and metaphor? Or perhaps a young upstart, eager to prove their skill and make a name for themselves? The stakes may not be life or death, but reputation and honor are on the line, not to mention the coveted prize of a free round of sake. Imagine the scene, the hushed silence as the first poet steps forward, the rustle of silk as they bow to the judges, the clear, resonant voice reciting verses that speak of love and loss, of nature's beauty and the ephemeral nature of life. Close your eyes for a moment and let the sounds of old Kyoto wash over you. The gentle strum of the shamisen, the rhythmic clapping of hands, the appreciative murmurs of the crowd. Can you feel the weight of tradition, the centuries of history that have led to this moment? This is more than just a poetry contest. It's a celebration of art, of culture, of the enduring power of words to transport us to another time and place. This street corner, this gathering of poets and onlookers, is a microcosm of Edo period Japan. It reflects the peace and prosperity of the times, the flourishing of the arts, the complex social dynamics, and the enduring human desire for beauty and expression. So, as we delve deeper into this night, into the heart of this poetry contest, remember the context, the history, the human stories that make this moment so compelling. The stage is set, the lanterns are lit, and the poets are ready to weave their magic. Let the verses begin. Down the street, past the bustling fish market and the quieter apothecary, you notice a small, unassuming shop. The front is almost entirely taken up by a single, wide window, slightly dusty but offering a glimpse into the organized chaos within. Lanterns, hanging from low-slung beams, cast a warm, flickering glow on the tools and wood shavings scattered across the floor. The air, thick with the scent of cedar and lacquer, whispers tales of patient craftsmanship. It's the workshop of a Bowyer, a craftsman dedicated to the ancient art of crafting longbows, weapons of war, symbols of samurai prowess, and surprisingly delicate works of art. This particular Bowyer, Yuki Hideyasu, however, has more than arrows on his mind. He's been working late into the night, the rhythmic rasp of his plane a constant companion to the chirping of crickets outside. But tonight, the sounds of woodworking are interspersed with the softer murmur of his voice, a gentle hum that rises and falls as he shapes not wood, but words. He's not just sanding wood, he's composing verses. He sits perched on a low stool, a half-finished longbow resting across his knees. A small, worn book lies open beside him, filled with meticulously inked characters, the flickering lantern light dancing across the page. His brow is furrowed in concentration, his lips moving silently as he rehearses lines, occasionally dipping a brush into an inkwell to jot down a new phrase or amend an existing one. The Bowyer's workshop is a testament to his dedication. Bundles of seasoned bamboo, carefully selected for their straightness and resilience, lean against one wall. Tools of the trade, each with a specific purpose honed over generations, hang neatly from pegs. Planes, saws, draw knives, files, and small hammers with heads shaped like tiny bells. Finished bows, gleaming with lacquer and wrapped in silk, stand proudly in a corner, their curves as elegant and deadly as a hunting cat. Hideyasu pauses in his recitation, a sigh escaping his lips. He picks up the half-finished bow and runs a calloused thumb along its smooth surface. The wood, a piece of prized yew, feels cool and comforting beneath his touch. The bow, like his poetry, is a work in progress, demanding both precision and passion. He glances again at the open book. The pages are filled with his own handwriting, a collection of poems dedicated to the beauty of the natural world, the fleeting nature of life, and the weighty burden of duty. But tonight, his verses take a different turn. They speak of a longing for peace, a yearning for an end to the constant strife that plagues the land. Hideyasu sets the bow down gently and returns to his writing, his brush moving with renewed purpose. He writes of the farmer who lays down his hoe to take up a sword, of the wife who waits anxiously for her husband's return, of the children who grow up knowing only the language of war. He writes of the cherry blossoms that bloom each spring, a vibrant reminder of life's fragility amidst the surrounding chaos. The night deepens, and the lanterns burn low. Outside, the streets are silent, the city asleep under a blanket of stars. But inside the small workshop, Hideyasu continues to work, driven by a need to express the unspoken anxieties that weigh heavily on his heart. He is not a warrior, not a politician, not a priest. He is a craftsman, a bowyer. His hands are skilled in shaping wood, not wielding swords, but he believes that his words, like his bows, can be weapons of a different kind. They can pierce the heart, stir the soul, and perhaps, just perhaps, inspire a change. He finishes a verse, reads it aloud, and nods in satisfaction. The words flow smoothly, capturing the essence of his feelings. He dips his brush in the inkwell once more and begins to write the final lines of his ballad. The bowstring taut, the arrow poised, aimed not at flesh, but at the void. Where peace lies hidden, waiting to be found, In the quiet whispers of the heart profound. He sets down his brush, a sense of completion washing over him. The ballad is finished. He closes his book carefully, the ink still slightly wet on the final page. He picks up the half-finished bow and holds it up to the lantern light, examining its graceful lines. He will finish the bow tomorrow, but tonight he has crafted something else, something perhaps even more important. He rises from his stool, stretches his stiff limbs, and blows out the lanterns one by one. The workshop is plunged into darkness, but the words of his ballad still echo in the silence, a testament to the power of art in a world consumed by conflict. He steps out into the cool night air, leaving behind the scent of cedar and lacquer, carrying with him the quiet hope that his words might find their mark. The Bowyer, the poet, the craftsman of words and wood, has sung his song, and now he waits, like the rest of the world, to see what dawn will bring. The lamplight flickered, casting dancing shadows across the worn tatami mats. The scent of sandalwood incense hung heavy in the air, a fragile shield against the encroaching chill of the autumn night. Yuki Hideyasu, his brow furrowed in concentration, dipped his brush into the inkstone. The smooth, black ink clung to the bristles, a promise of the words yet to be born. Around him, scrolls lay scattered, some rolled tight, others unfurled like whispered secrets. Usually these scrolls would hold the comforting wisdom of Confucius, the familiar cadence of the Analects a balm to his soul. Tonight, however, the master's words offered little solace. Tonight, a different kind of harmony consumed him. He was a bowyer, his hands accustomed to the feel of polished wood, the tautness of a bowstring, the satisfying thwack of an arrow finding its mark. Precision, balance, and unwavering focus were the tenets of his craft. Yet, these same principles, so vital in his profession, seemed to desert him when it came to the delicate art of composing poetry. He sighed, setting the brush down with a soft click. The blank parchment mocked him, a stark white expanse representing the emptiness within his own heart, or so it felt. He glanced towards the small, lacquered box resting on a low table. Inside lay the invitation, its elegant calligraphy, a testament to the refined taste of the contest's host. The annual poetry competition held at the Matsudaira estate was the highlight of the social season. For Yuki Hideyasu, however, it wasn't the prestige of the competition that drew him. It was the chance to see her. Iroha Matsudaira. Just the thought of her name sent a ripple of warmth through him. He pictured her, her raven hair cascading down her back like a silken waterfall, her eyes, the color of a summer sky after a rain shower, sparkling with intelligence and wit. He had only caught glimpses of her at previous gatherings, fleeting moments of shared smiles and exchanged pleasantries, but they were enough to ignite a flame within him. This year's theme was Autumn's Embrace. He had been pondering it for weeks, trying to capture the essence of the season, the bittersweet beauty of falling leaves, the crispness of the air, the melancholic anticipation of winter. But every attempt felt clumsy, inadequate. How could mere words, even the most eloquently crafted, ever hope to capture the depth of his emotions, the yearning in his heart? He picked up his brush again, dipping it in the ink with renewed determination. He wasn't a man of grand gestures, of flamboyant declarations. He preferred the quiet language of craftsmanship, the subtle elegance of a perfectly balanced bow. But Iroha, she deserved more than silence. She deserved a poem that resonated with the same passion that burned within him. He closed his eyes, trying to visualize her face, her smile. He imagined her reading his poem, her delicate fingers tracing the lines of ink on the parchment. He wanted her to feel the autumn wind whispering through the bamboo groves, to smell the burning leaves, to hear the mournful cry of the distant geese. He wanted her to understand, without him having to utter a single word, the depth of his admiration, the unspoken longing that filled his heart. He began to write, the characters flowing from his brush with a newfound fluidity. He wrote of the crimson maple leaves, ablaze with the last vestiges of summer's warmth, surrendering to the inevitable embrace of winter's chill. He wrote of the lonely fisherman casting his net in the twilight, his silhouette a stark contrast against the fading light. He wrote of the rustling bamboo, whispering secrets to the wind, a metaphor for the unspoken words he yearned to share with her. He wrote and rewrote, discarding draft after draft, each one falling short of the vision in his mind. The hours slipped away, marked only by the dwindling candle flame and the growing pile of discarded parchment. He was a perfectionist, honed by years of meticulous craftsmanship, and he wouldn't settle for anything less than his best. This wasn't just a poem, it was a testament to his feelings, a silent offering laid at the altar of his unspoken love. Finally, as the first rays of dawn began to paint the sky with hues of pink and gold, he felt a sense of completion. He looked at the parchment before him, the ink still glistening in the soft light. It wasn't perfect, he knew, but it was honest. It was a reflection of his soul, laid bare for her to see. He carefully rolled the scroll, tying it with a silk ribbon, his fingers lingering on the smooth fabric. He knew that winning the contest was a long shot. He was a Bowyer, not a poet. There would be others, more skilled in the art of verse, who could weave words into intricate tapestries of meaning. But for Yuki Hideyasu, the contest wasn't about winning. It was about the chance, however slim, that Iroha might read his words, that she might glimpse the hidden depths beneath his quiet exterior. It was about the hope, fragile yet persistent, that she might see, in the ink and paper, the reflection of his heart. He placed the scroll back in the lacquered box, a small smile playing on his lips. The exhaustion he felt was overshadowed by a sense of quiet anticipation. The contest was still days away, but in that moment, surrounded by the remnants of his creative struggle, Yuki Hideyasu felt a sense of peace. He had poured his heart onto the page. And that, in itself, was a victory. Whether Iroha noticed or not, he had found a different kind of harmony, a balance between the craftsman and the poet, between the man and his unspoken love. The ink had flowed, the inspiration had taken hold, and in the quiet of the dawn, Yuki Hideyasu knew he had done his best. Across the street, amidst the throng of evening shoppers and chattering families, Iroha Matsudaira watched the scene unfold with an almost detached amusement. The flickering gaslights painted the street in a warm, hazy glow, reflecting in the polished ebony of her rickshaw. She leaned back against the plush cushions, the silk of her kimono cool against her skin. The incident, a minor squabble escalating into a full-blown argument between a street vendor and a disgruntled customer, held little interest for her. It was the reactions of those around them, the subtle shifts in body language, the veiled glances and hushed whispers, that truly captivated her. She observed it all with the keen eye of a seasoned strategist, dissecting the social dynamics at play. Iroha was known throughout Kyoto for her sharp wit, a weapon she wielded with precision and grace. Her words, often laced with subtle irony, could cut deeper than any blade. It wasn't just her wit that commanded attention. It was her presence. Tall and elegant, with a regal bearing inherited from generations of aristocratic lineage, she possessed an air of quiet authority. Her dark eyes, framed by long, silken lashes, held a depth of intelligence that could be both intimidating and alluring. She could silence a room with a single glance, a skill honed through years of navigating the complex social landscape of Kyoto's elite. A tilted eyebrow, a slight curl of her lip, were often more effective than any shouted command. Her family, the Matsudaira clan, was one of the most respected in Kyoto. Their history was intertwined with the city's, a tapestry woven with threads of political influence, artistic patronage, and unwavering loyalty to tradition. The Matsudaira name carried weight, opening doors and silencing dissent. Their wealth was evident not only in their opulent estate nestled in the hills overlooking the city, but also in their subtle displays of refined taste, the exquisite silks they wore, the antique jade ornaments adorning their hair, the meticulously crafted fans they carried. This heritage, combined with Iroha's own exceptional qualities, made her a highly sought-after match. Proposals arrived regularly, carried by nervous intermediaries bearing gifts of exquisite lacquerware and delicate flower arrangements. Young men from prominent families vied for her attention, hoping to catch her eye during the seasonal festivals or at the exclusive tea ceremonies held in the city's most prestigious gardens. They wrote her poems, praising her beauty and intelligence, hoping to win her favor. But Iroha remained unmoved. She had little interest in the simpering flattery and veiled power plays that constituted courtship amongst the elite. She found more stimulation in the intellectual pursuits she enjoyed, studying ancient texts, perfecting her calligraphy, and engaging in lively debates with the city's most respected scholars. Marriage, in her view, was a strategic alliance, a tool to be used for the benefit of her family and the advancement of her own ambitions. She would not settle for anything less than a partner who could match her intellect, her ambition, and her unwavering commitment to the Matsudaira legacy. The commotion across the street had finally subsided, the disgruntled customer appeased with a hastily offered discount. Iroha's attention shifted. She noticed a young man standing apart from the dispersing crowd. He was dressed simply, without the ostentatious displays of wealth so common amongst the city's elite. Yet, there was an air of quiet confidence about him, a certain intensity in his gaze that intrigued her. He seemed to be observing the same scene she had been watching, his expression thoughtful, almost analytical. Iroha found herself drawn to his unconventional presence. He was a stark contrast to the preening peacocks who flocked around her, vying for her attention with empty gestures and hollow words. There was a rawness, an authenticity about him that she found refreshing. She signaled to her rickshaw driver, a discreet gesture that went unnoticed by the bustling crowds. As the rickshaw glided smoothly towards the curb, she kept her gaze fixed on the young man. He remained still, seemingly lost in thought, unaware of her approach. When the rickshaw stopped beside him, he turned, his eyes meeting hers. For a moment they held each other's gaze, a silent exchange passing between them. He didn't bow, didn't offer the customary greetings. Instead, he simply looked at her, his expression unreadable. Iroha, accustomed to deference and admiration, found herself momentarily disarmed by his boldness. A faint smile played on her lips, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. This unexpected encounter had piqued her interest. Perhaps, she thought, there was more to this young man than met the eye. Perhaps he was the challenge she had been waiting for, a disruption to the predictable rhythm of her carefully orchestrated life. "Tell me," she began, her voice soft yet commanding, "what did you make of that little drama?" The young man considered her question for a moment, his gaze unwavering. "It was a performance," he finally replied, his voice low and steady. A dance of pride and desperation, played out for an audience that didn't even realize they were watching. Iroha's smile widened. He was perceptive, insightful. This was no ordinary young man. "And what role did you play in this performance?" she asked, her voice laced with a hint of playful challenge. "Observer," he replied simply. "Just like you." Iroha leaned back against the cushions, intrigued. This encounter was proving to be far more interesting than she had anticipated. The young man's directness, his refusal to be intimidated by her status, was a refreshing change from the usual fawning and flattery. "Perhaps," she said, her voice a silken whisper, "we should observe together." The palanquin settled gently onto the ground, the bearers lowering it with practiced ease. A hush fell over the assembled crowd, the rustling silks and murmuring voices fading to a respectful silence. The curtain slid back, revealing Okubo Toshimichi. He emerged, his presence radiating an air of calm authority. His dark kimono, devoid of ostentatious embellishment, spoke of his pragmatic nature, a stark contrast to the vibrant colors worn by many in the crowd. Behind him, two samurai, their hands resting on the hilts of their katana, followed, their faces impassive, eyes scanning the assembled throng. A small group of scholars, easily identifiable by their ink-stained fingers and the scrolls peeking from their sleeves, brought up the rear. The crowd parted before them like water before a ship's prow, creating a path leading directly to the raised platform where the poetry competition was to be held. Okubo's gaze swept over the assembled faces, a subtle flicker of acknowledgement in his eyes. He recognized the banners of powerful clans, the anxious expressions of ambitious young poets, and the shrewd, calculating gazes of seasoned political players. This was more than just a gathering of artists. It was a stage upon which the intricate dance of power played out, and Okubo was acutely aware of the steps. He ascended the platform, his movements deliberate and measured. The two samurai took positions on either side, silent sentinels. The scholars arranged themselves behind him, their presence lending an air of intellectual gravitas to the proceedings. Okubo faced the crowd, his expression unreadable. He knew the weight of expectation that rested upon him. His judgment today would not only determine the winner of a poetry competition, but could also shift the delicate balance of power within the shogunate. The air crackled with unspoken tension. Clans vying for influence, families seeking favor, individuals striving for recognition. All were represented here, their hopes and ambitions hanging in the balance. Okubo understood the true nature of the game. The poems themselves were merely the weapons, carefully crafted verses designed to cut deeper than any blade. They were veiled pronouncements of loyalty, thinly disguised criticisms of rivals, and subtle pleas for patronage. He had studied the participants' backgrounds, analyzed their alliances, and deciphered the hidden messages in the poems submitted beforehand. He knew which clans were using the competition as a proxy war, which families were jockeying for position, and which individuals were seeking to advance their own agendas. He was aware of the whispers and rumors that had preceded his arrival, accusations of bias, insinuations of corruption, attempts to influence his judgment. He let none of it show. He raised his hand, silencing the low hum of anticipation that permeated the air. "The purpose of this gathering," he began, his voice clear and resonant, carrying effortlessly to the furthest edges of the crowd, "is to celebrate the art of poetry, to honor the beauty of language, and to recognize the talent that flourishes within our land." His words were carefully chosen, acknowledging the ostensible purpose of the event while subtly hinting at the deeper significance. "But," he continued, his tone shifting slightly, a steely edge entering his voice, "true artistry cannot exist in a vacuum. It is shaped by the world around us, by the events that define our times, by the principles that guide our actions." He paused, letting his words hang in the air, allowing the weight of their meaning to settle upon the audience. The poems we will hear today are not merely exercises in rhyme and meter. They are reflections of the hearts and minds of their creators. They speak to the values that we hold dear, the challenges that we face, and the hopes that we cherish for the future. His gaze swept over the crowd again, lingering for a moment on the representatives of several key clans. "Therefore," he concluded, his voice ringing with authority, "I urge you, not only to listen to the words that are spoken, but also to discern the deeper meaning that lies beneath. Listen not only for the beauty of the verse, but also for the truth that it reveals." He lowered his hand, signaling the beginning of the competition. The first poet, a young woman representing a minor clan, stepped forward, her face pale with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Okubo watched her closely, observing not only her recitation but also the reactions of the audience. He saw the subtle nods of approval from some, the barely perceptible frowns from others, the carefully concealed expressions of disdain from those who saw her as a threat. He listened not only to the words of the poem, but also to the unspoken dialogue that was taking place between the different factions within the crowd. As the competition progressed, the political subtext became increasingly apparent. Poems praising the shogun were met with enthusiastic applause from his loyalists, while verses lamenting the state of the nation drew knowing glances from those who sought reform. Allegories about courageous warriors were interpreted as thinly veiled endorsements of particular clans, while laments about lost love were deciphered as coded messages of political betrayal. Okubo observed it all, his mind working tirelessly, piecing together the fragments of information, analyzing the motivations of the players, and calculating the potential consequences of his judgment. He knew that his decision would have far-reaching implications, shaping the future of the shogunate and the destiny of the nation. This was not just a poetry competition. It was a scholar's gambit, a delicate game of political chess, and Okubo Toshimichi was the master player. He would choose his words, and therefore the victor, carefully. The lantern swayed gently in the breeze, casting a warm glow on the assembled crowd. A hush fell as Master Hiroshige, renowned poet and calligrapher, took his seat on the elevated platform. He nodded, his long white beard swaying, and the poetry contest began. A young scholar, his face flushed with nervous excitement, stepped forward. He bowed deeply, his elaborate kimono rustling, and began to recite. His voice, though trembling slightly, projected clearly through the night air. Beneath the cherry's blush, a fragile dance unfolds. Petals drift like whispered dreams as moonlight softly holds. He struck a dramatic pose as he finished, his eyes darting towards Iroha, seated in the front row. A ripple of applause followed his performance. Next, a more seasoned poet, his face etched with confidence, strode onto the stage. He didn't bother with a bow, but launched directly into his verse. Ephemeral beauty, a fleeting crimson tide. The cherry blossoms reign, where joys and sorrows hide. His voice was rich and resonant, his delivery imbued with practiced theatricality. He finished with a flourish, his gaze lingering on Iroha for a beat longer than necessary. The crowd murmured appreciatively. The contest continued, a parade of scholars, each vying to outdo the last. Metaphors flowed like sake, comparing the blossoms to falling stars, to fleeting love, to the ephemeral nature of youth. Some recited with quiet intensity, others with bombastic flair. One particularly flamboyant scholar even incorporated a small fan into his performance, using it to mimic the falling petals. A silken whisper on the wind's gentle sigh, the cherry blossoms grace beneath a moonlit sky. This poet, dressed in simple robes, delivered his poem with a quiet dignity that contrasted sharply with the previous performances. His sincerity seemed to resonate with the audience, drawing them into the quiet beauty of his words. Iroha, too, seemed captivated by his understated elegance. Another scholar, eager to impress, took a more theatrical approach. He paced the stage, his voice rising and falling with dramatic emphasis. A crimson tempest, a flurry of delight, the cherry blossoms blaze, burning ever so bright. He gestured wildly, his sleeves billowing around him like storm clouds. The crowd responded with enthusiastic applause, though Master Hiroshige's expression remained impassive. A painted canvas where pink and white collide, the cherry blossoms art in spring's gentle tide. This scholar's poem was short and sweet, his delivery precise and polished. He bowed deeply to Master Hiroshige, and then turned to Iroha, offering her a small, shy smile. The night wore on, the air thick with the scent of cherry blossoms and the sound of poetry. The competition was fierce, each scholar hoping to capture not only the judge's attention, but also Iroha's heart. One scholar, known for his wit, delivered a humorous poem, drawing laughter from the crowd. The cherry blossoms fall, like drunken samurai, scattering in the wind beneath a watchful eye. He staggered dramatically as he finished, mimicking a tipsy warrior, earning him a hearty round of applause. Another scholar, attempting to emulate the previous success with humor, stumbled through a clumsy verse that fell flat. His forced jokes and awkward delivery earned him only polite titters and a sympathetic glance from Iroha. The pressure of the competition was clearly taking its toll. A whispered promise of summers yet to come, the cherry blossoms' hope, in nature's gentle hum. This scholar's voice was soft and melodic, his poem filled with a quiet optimism. He seemed oblivious to the competition, lost in the beauty of his own words. His sincerity touched a chord with Iroha, a gentle smile gracing her lips. As the last scholar finished his recitation, a hush fell over the crowd. Master Hiroshige closed his eyes, his brow furrowed in concentration. He remained motionless for a long moment, weighing the merits of each performance. The tension in the air was palpable. Finally, he opened his eyes and announced, "The poetry tonight has been exceptional, a true testament to the beauty of the cherry blossom. Each scholar has poured their heart and soul into their verses. But there can be only one winner." He paused, drawing out the suspense, his gaze sweeping over the anxious faces of the competitors. "And that winner will be announced tomorrow at dawn, beneath the oldest cherry tree in the garden." A collective gasp went through the crowd. The anticipation was almost unbearable. The scholars, their hopes and anxieties hanging in the balance, looked towards Iroha, wondering whose words had captured her heart. The night ended not with a resolution, but with a promise of a new dawn, filled with both anticipation and the delicate beauty of the cherry blossoms. The flickering lamplight danced across Yuki Hideyasu's face, highlighting the sharp angles of his cheekbones and the intensity in his dark eyes. He took a slow, measured breath, the silence in the room amplifying the rustle of his silken kimono. He hadn't touched the sake offered to him, his focus entirely on the task at hand. The previous poets had bared their souls, their verses echoing with love, loss, and longing. Now it was his turn. He began, his voice low and steady, resonant like the hum of a drawn bowstring. "Take the bamboo, slender stalk, swaying in the wind's embrace. See how it bends, but does not break, yielding yet unyielding in its grace." He paused, letting the image settle in the minds of his audience. The air crackled with anticipation. Lord Oda Nobunaga, seated on a raised platform, watched with an unreadable expression. Lady Iroha, the object of Hideyasu's affections, sat beside him, her gaze fixed on the young samurai. Its roots run deep, unseen, a hidden network of strength, drawing life from the earth, enduring winter's biting length. His voice gained power, his words carrying the weight of unspoken emotions. He wasn't merely reciting a poem, he was painting a picture, weaving a tapestry of meaning. The bamboo, so seemingly fragile, was a metaphor for himself, for his unwavering spirit, for his hidden depths. The craftsman's hand shapes the reed into arrows swift and true, a weapon of war, a tool of peace, its purpose ever new. He glanced at Iroha, his eyes softening for a fleeting moment. The poem wasn't just about the bamboo, it was about him, about the warrior's heart concealed beneath a calm exterior. It was about his love for her, a love as strong and resilient as the plant he described. Just as the arrow finds its mark, so too does my heart seek its home. In the warmth of your gaze, Lady Iroha, a love that forever will roam. The confession hung in the air, palpable and potent. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Nobunaga's eyebrow twitched, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Hideyasu continued, his voice rising in intensity. The outer sheath may be smooth and green, but within lies a heart of fire. A passion burning, fierce and bright, fueled by a deep desire. He clenched his fist, the image of the bamboo's hidden strength mirroring his own concealed emotions. He was a buyer, yes, crafting weapons of war, but he was also a man, capable of a love as sharp and potent as any arrow. The bamboo whispers secrets to the wind, tales of resilience and might, of standing tall against the storm, embracing the darkness and the light. He spoke of the duality within himself, the warrior and the lover, the strength and the vulnerability. He was a man of contradictions, a man of hidden depths, just like the bamboo he so eloquently described. So too does my heart whisper to you, Lady Iroha, a silent plea. To be seen, to be understood, to find solace and peace in thee. His voice softened, the plea in his words resonating with raw emotion. He was laying himself bare, exposing his vulnerability to the court, to the woman he loved. Like the bamboo, I bend but do not break, my spirit unwavering and true. My love for you, Lady Iroha, a strength that will see me through. He finished, his voice echoing in the sudden silence. The room held its breath, captivated by the power of his words, the intensity of his emotions. He bowed deeply, his gaze lingering on Iroha for a moment before returning to Nobunaga. The silence stretched, taut and expectant. Then, a slow clap broke the stillness. Nobunaga, a rare smile playing on his lips, began to applaud. The others in the room followed suit, the applause swelling into a crescendo of appreciation. Hideyasu remained bowed, his heart pounding in his chest. He had taken a risk, baring his soul to the court, confessing his love for a woman beyond his reach. But in that moment he felt a sense of liberation, a sense of peace. He had spoken his truth, and whether his love was reciprocated or not, he had remained true to himself, like the resilient bamboo, bending but never breaking. He had revealed the Bowyer's heart. The ink on the rice paper still gleamed, the elegant calligraphy a testament to the Bowyer's steady hand. Iroha reread the poem for the 10th time, the delicate imagery of moonlit cherry blossoms and whispered promises clinging to her thoughts like the lingering scent of wisteria. She folded the paper carefully, tucking it into the sleeve of her kimono. Her fingers brushed against the smooth fabric, the familiar gesture, a small comfort in the swirling emotions the poem had stirred within her. She was known for her composure, a stillness that some mistook for coldness. Years of rigorous training, of honing her skills as a warrior, had taught her to mask her feelings, to present an unreadable facade to the world. But now, a warmth spread through her chest, a gentle pressure against her ribs that threatened to crack the carefully constructed walls around her heart. A smile played on her lips, so slight it was almost imperceptible, yet it felt like a rebellion. The annual poetry competition was more than just a contest. It was a tradition, a celebration of art and culture in her village. Winning had always been her goal, a testament to her discipline and dedication. She'd spent weeks perfecting her own poem, meticulously crafting each line, polishing each metaphor until it shone like a finely crafted katana. She'd envisioned the moment of victory, the quiet satisfaction of knowing her efforts had been rewarded. But the Bowyer's poem, it was different. It wasn't just technically proficient, it resonated with the depth of emotion that hers, despite all her efforts, lacked. It spoke of a longing for connection, a vulnerability that Iroha rarely allowed herself to acknowledge, let alone express. And the Bowyer himself. She recalled the brief encounter earlier that day, the way his calloused hands had carefully presented the poem, his eyes meeting hers with a quiet intensity that had sent a shiver down her spine. He was a craftsman, his hands accustomed to shaping wood and sinew into instruments of war, yet his words were imbued with a gentleness that belied his profession. He hadn't boasted of his skill or sought her praise. He simply offered his poem, a gift freely given, and in that simple act he had disarmed her. The smile tugged at her lips again, stronger this time. It was unsettling, this unfamiliar lightness in her chest. Winning the competition suddenly felt complicated. Before, it had been a straightforward goal, a challenge to be conquered. Now, the prospect of besting the Bowyer, of potentially diminishing his artistry, left a bitter taste in her mouth. She wandered through the village gardens, the setting sun casting long shadows across the carefully manicured lawns. The air was filled with the sweet fragrance of jasmine and the chirping of crickets. Usually, these walks brought her peace, a chance to clear her mind and focus her energy. But tonight, her thoughts were a tangled mess of conflicting emotions. She respected the Bowyer's talent. She admired his courage to expose his heart in his art. And she couldn't deny the strange flutter in her stomach whenever she thought of his steady gaze, the quiet strength that emanated from him. It was a distraction, a dangerous one for a warrior who prided herself on discipline and control. She stopped beneath a flowering cherry tree, its branches heavy with blossoms. The moonlight filtered through the petals, casting an ethereal glow on the ground below. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the delicate silk of a blossom. The Bowyer's poem had spoken of moonlit cherry blossoms, a symbol of fleeting beauty, of the ephemeral nature of life. And in that moment, Iroha understood. Winning wasn't everything. The competition, the recognition, the praise, they were fleeting, like the cherry blossoms, destined to fade with time. But the connection she felt to the Bowyer's poem, the resonance it had within her soul, that was something deeper, something more enduring. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath of the fragrant air. The smile that bloomed on her face now was genuine, untainted by ambition or the desire for victory. It was a smile of understanding, of acceptance, and perhaps the faintest hint of hope. She knew what she had to do. It wouldn't be easy. It would require her to break from tradition, to defy expectations, and perhaps even to face disappointment. But it was the right thing to do, the only thing that felt true to the newfound stirring in her heart. The decision made, a sense of calm washed over her, a tranquility she hadn't felt in years. The weight of expectation lifted, replaced by a quiet anticipation, a sense of excitement for what the future held. She walked back towards her home, the moonlight illuminating her path, her steps lighter than they had been in a long time. The Bowyer's poem, tucked safely in her sleeve, was more than just a piece of art. It was a catalyst, a gentle nudge towards a path she hadn't known existed. And Iroha, the composed warrior, walked towards that path with a smile on her face. The rustle of silk filled the otherwise silent hall as Okubo Toshimichi shifted in his seat. He reread the poem for what felt like the 100th time, the delicate calligraphy, a stark contrast to the weight of the words, the depth of feeling expressed by a simple Bowyer. Hideyasu's poem, inspired by the curve of a bow, resonated with a purity of emotion that surpassed the technically brilliant, yet somewhat sterile verses submitted by the recognized scholars. A craftsman, a man who worked with his hands, had outdone them all. He tapped a finger against the lacquered table, the rhythmic sound echoing the conflicting thoughts in his mind. Choosing Hideyasu would be a significant, almost revolutionary act. It would be a public acknowledgement that genius, that artistic inspiration, could blossom anywhere, not just within the rarefied air of the scholarly elite. The common people, the artisans, the merchants, they would see it as a victory, a sign that their contributions were valued, that their voices could be heard even within the hallowed halls of the court. Such a message could ignite a spark of ambition, a surge of creativity, across the land. But the court, he sighed, picturing the disapproving faces of the established scholars, the whispers and veiled insults that would follow such a decision. They would see it as a slap in the face, a degradation of their status, an affront to their years of dedicated study. They would argue that elevating a craftsman, a man untrained in the classical arts, would set a dangerous precedent, undermining the very foundations of the hierarchical system upon which the court was built. And what of the emperor? While a patron of the arts, he was also deeply invested in maintaining the traditional order. Would he see this as a bold stroke of brilliance, a refreshing change of pace? Or would he perceive it as a reckless act, a disruption of the delicate balance of power? Okubo rubbed his temples, feeling the beginnings of a headache. The potential consequences of his decision weighed heavily upon him. The scholars' protests would be loud, their influence considerable. They held sway over public opinion, and their disapproval could easily turn into a wave of dissent, undermining his own position and potentially jeopardizing the delicate political stability of the newly restored Meiji government. He glanced again at the poem, the simple elegance of its lines, a stark reminder of the talent he was considering either championing or suppressing. Hideyasu's work was a testament to the power of observation, the ability to find beauty in the mundane, to transform the everyday into art. To dismiss it based solely on the man's social standing felt wrong. It felt like stifling a flame before it could truly ignite. He paced the length of the room, the soft susurrus of his robes accompanying his troubled thoughts. He could, of course, find a compromise. He could award the prize to one of the established scholars, acknowledging Hideyasu's talent with a special commendation, perhaps a small monetary reward. It would appease the court, maintain the status quo, and still offer some recognition to the Bowyer. But it would also be a betrayal, a subtle but significant dismissal of Hideyasu's genius. It would be a silent affirmation that true artistry was the exclusive domain of the elite. The memory of the Bowyer's face, etched with quiet dignity, flashed in his mind. The man had not sought fame or fortune. He had simply offered his poem, a piece of his soul, for consideration. To offer him anything less than full recognition felt like a disservice, not only to the man himself, but to the very spirit of art. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room. The air grew heavy with anticipation as the hour of the announcement approached. Okubo stopped pacing, a newfound resolve hardening his features. He had a duty to the court, to the emperor, to maintain order and stability. But he also had a duty to something greater, something more profound. The pursuit of truth and beauty, wherever it might be found. He returned to the table, picked up a brush, and dipped it in ink. With a steady hand he began to write, the characters flowing onto the parchment with a decisive grace. He was aware of the risks, the potential backlash. He knew that his decision would have far-reaching consequences, but he also knew, with unwavering certainty, that it was the right thing to do. He was choosing not just a poem, but a future where talent and creativity would not be constrained by the rigid boundaries of social class. He was choosing a future where a Bowyer, with the soul of a poet, could stand shoulder to shoulder with the most esteemed scholars in the land. He was choosing, in essence, to embrace the very spirit of the Meiji Restoration, a spirit of progress, innovation, and the unwavering belief in the potential of all people. The ink dried on the parchment, sealing his decision, a decision that would reverberate through the halls of power and whisper hope into the hearts of the common people. The scholar's dilemma had been resolved. The rhythmic clang of metal on metal, the roar of the crowd, the vibrant energy that had only moments ago filled the air, all were swallowed by the sudden torrential downpour. The sky, which had been a clear, crisp blue, now churned with dark, angry clouds. Fat raindrops, heavy with the promise of a prolonged storm, began to lash down, scattering the spectators like leaves in a gale. The meticulously raked gravel of the contest arena transformed into a swirling mire. The meticulously crafted banners, depicting legendary heroes and mythical beasts, plastered themselves against their poles, their vibrant colors bleeding into the downpour. The competitors, mid-swing, mid-shout, froze for a heartbeat, their expressions a mixture of surprise and frustration, before abandoning their matches and scrambling for cover. I felt a tug on my sleeve and turned to see Iroha, her eyes wide with the sudden change of weather. Her elaborate hairstyle, adorned with intricate pins and ribbons, was already beginning to wilt under the onslaught of the rain. Without a word, she gestured towards a nearby tea house, the wide eaves of its traditional tiled roof offering a haven from the downpour. We ran, the rain plastering our clothes to our skin, the hem of Iroha's kimono swirling around her ankles. The noise of the storm was deafening, a constant drumming on the rooftops and the splashing of water in the newly formed puddles. Reaching the tea house, we huddled under the eaves, shivering slightly despite the relative warmth of the summer air. For a long moment, we simply stood there, side by side, catching our breath, the only sound the insistent rhythm of the rain. I glanced at Kuroha. Water dripped from the tip of her nose, and strands of her dark hair clung to her cheeks. She looked different. Stripped of the formality of the contest, of the expectations and the scrutiny of the crowd, she seemed younger, more vulnerable. She caught my gaze and offered a small, hesitant smile. "Quite the unexpected turn," she said, her voice barely audible above the roar of the storm. "Indeed," I replied, my own voice a low murmur. The air between us felt charged, alive with a strange energy. The rain, I realized, wasn't just water. It was a catalyst, washing away the pretense and the formalities, leaving behind a raw, unexpected intimacy. We stood in silence for a while longer, watching the rain cascade from the eaves, forming a shimmering curtain of water. The world outside seemed to shrink, to fade away, leaving only the two of us beneath the shelter of the tea house. It was a strange, suspended moment, outside of time, outside of the ordinary. Iroha shivered again, and I instinctively reached out, placing my hand gently on her arm. Her skin was surprisingly warm beneath the damp silk of her kimono. She looked up at me, her eyes wide and questioning. I held her gaze, feeling a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the summer air. "Are you cold?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She shook her head slightly but didn't pull away. The rain continued to fall, a relentless torrent, but beneath the eaves the air felt still, almost breathless. She began, then hesitated, as if unsure of what she wanted to say. She looked away, her gaze fixed on the rain-lashed street. "I didn't expect it to rain," she finally murmured. "Neither did I replied. The simple exchange felt weighted with unspoken meaning. The rain had disrupted the contest, yes, but it had also created this moment, this unexpected pocket of intimacy. Iroha turned back to me, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "It seems fate has other plans for us today," she said, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. Her words hung in the air between us, charged with possibility. The rain continued to fall, blurring the world outside into an impressionistic painting of grays and blues. Under the eaves of the tea house, sheltered from the storm, we stood together, caught in a moment of unexpected connection. The contest, the crowd, the expectations, all of it seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the two of us, and the silent, unspoken understanding that something had shifted, something had changed between us. The air crackled with an unspoken tension, a silent question hanging between us. The rain, a relentless, drumming presence, seemed to amplify the quiet intimacy of the moment. We stood close, our bodies almost touching, the warmth of her arm radiating through the damp silk of her kimono and into my hand. I felt a strange pull towards her, a desire to close the small distance that separated us, to feel the warmth of her against me. It was a feeling I hadn't anticipated, a feeling that both thrilled and unsettled me. The carefully constructed walls I had built around myself seemed to crumble under the force of the moment, the unexpected intimacy forged by the storm. Iroha looked up at me, her eyes shining with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. The rain had plastered her hair to her forehead, giving her a vulnerable, almost childlike appearance. In that moment, she seemed stripped bare of the usual formalities and social graces, revealing a glimpse of the person beneath the carefully crafted facade. And in that moment, I realized that I wanted to know that person. I wanted to understand the thoughts and feelings hidden behind those expressive eyes, the dreams and aspirations she held close to her heart. The rain, the unexpected interruption, had created a crack in the surface, a glimpse into something deeper, something more real. And I found myself drawn to it, compelled to explore the uncharted territory that lay between us. The future, once a clear, predictable path, now seemed to branch off in 1,000 different directions, each one filled with the potential for something new, something unexpected. And for the first time, I found myself embracing the uncertainty, eager to see where this twist of fate would lead. "It's really coming down, isn't it?" Iroha nodded, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The rain hammered against the awning of the small tea shop, a rhythmic drumming that filled the otherwise quiet street. We sat huddled together at a table near the window, the steam from our cups swirling in the damp air. "I used to hate the rain," she said softly, her gaze fixed on the street outside. The world beyond the window was blurred, softened by the downpour. It always felt melancholy, like a constant reminder of something lost. I took a sip of my tea, the warm liquid a comforting weight in my stomach. "And now?" She shrugged, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Now, it just feels like rain. Sometimes it's nice, just listening to it. It's cleansing almost." We fell silent, the only sound the steady rhythm of the rain and the quiet murmur of other patrons in the shop. I hadn't expected to be having this conversation with Iroha. Our usual meetings revolved around poetry, dissecting lines and rhythms, sharing our latest creations. This was different, more intimate. "Do you ever think about what you're supposed to be doing?" I asked, the words tumbling out before I could fully form the thought. "Like what your purpose is?" Iroha tilted her head, considering. "I used to. I spent so long trying to figure out what the right path was, what I was meant to do." She chuckled, a self-deprecating sound. "It's exhausting, trying to live up to some imaginary ideal." "I know exactly what you mean," I admitted. "It feels like there's this pressure to have it all figured out, to have a plan." "And then," Iroha continued, picking up the thread of the conversation, "you realize there isn't a plan, or at least not one that's set in stone." We watched as a lone figure hurried down the street, head bowed against the rain. He disappeared around the corner, swallowed by the gray downpour. "It's more like navigation," I suggested, the analogy forming in my mind as I spoke. "You have a general idea of where you want to go, but you have to constantly adjust course, deal with the unexpected storms." "Exactly," Iroha agreed, her eyes brightening. "And sometimes, those storms take you to places you never would have imagined." I thought about my own life, the unexpected turns and detours that had led me to this moment, to this quiet conversation with Iroha in a rain-soaked tea shop. It wasn't the path I'd envisioned, but it was interesting, fulfilling even. "Do you believe in fate?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. Iroha paused, her gaze drifting back to the rain. "I think it's a dance between fate and choice. Sometimes it feels like things are predetermined, like there's a current carrying you along. But then you make a choice, a small decision, and it changes the direction of the flow entirely." "Like choosing to come in here for tea?" I suggested, a small smile tugging at the corner of my lips. She returned the smile, a genuine warmth in her eyes. "Exactly like that. Maybe if the rain hadn't been so heavy, we would have gone our separate ways, stuck to our usual routines." The rain intensified, the drumming against the awning growing louder. The streetlights flickered on, casting a warm, inviting glow against the gray backdrop. "I used to dream of grand adventures," Iroha confessed, her voice barely a whisper above the rain. "Epic journeys, heroic quests, the kind of things you read about in books." "And now?" I prompted, genuinely curious. "Now," she said, her voice gaining strength, "I think the real adventure is in the everyday, in the small moments, the unexpected connections, the quiet conversations in the rain." Her words resonated with me, a deep chord struck within. It was a simple truth, yet profound in its simplicity. We often searched for meaning in the grand and the spectacular, overlooking the beauty and significance of the ordinary. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, each lost in our own thoughts. The rain continued to fall, a steady, soothing presence. It wasn't just a backdrop to our conversation, it was a part of it. A silent participant in the shared intimacy of the moment. "I never thought I'd find someone who understands," I confessed, the words escaping before I could fully process them. Iroha met my gaze, her eyes filled with a quiet understanding. "Me neither," she admitted. "It's nice." The word hung in the air, a simple acknowledgement of the connection we'd found. It wasn't romantic, not in the traditional sense. It was something deeper, something more profound, a shared understanding of the world, of the complexities of life, and the quiet beauty of a rainy afternoon. The rain eventually began to ease, the drumming against the awning softening to a gentle patter. The world outside the window slowly came back into focus, the blurred edges sharpening, the colors regaining their vibrancy. "I should probably get going," Iroha said, a hint of regret in her voice. "Me too," I agreed, feeling a similar pang of reluctance. We stood up, gathering our things. The air felt cleaner, fresher, washed clean by the rain. As we stepped out onto the street, the last vestiges of the downpour clinging to the leaves and the pavement, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the unexpected turn of events, for the shared moment of connection, for the whispers in the rain. The rain, which had hammered the makeshift arena for what felt like an eternity, finally began to ease. Fat, glistening drops still clung to the eaves of the surrounding buildings, tracing shimmering paths down tiled roofs and splattering onto the rain-soaked street below. The air, thick with the scent of damp earth and wood smoke, vibrated with a renewed energy as the remaining spectators shuffled back into their places, their faces a mixture of expectation and impatience. The embers in the braziers, diligently tended throughout the downpour, were coaxed back to life, casting a flickering orange glow over the scene. The two contenders, Yuki Hideyasu and his opponent, stood patiently by their elaborate creations, miniature landscapes crafted from meticulously pruned bonsai trees, rocks, and moss. Hideyasu, despite the disappointment etched on his face from the interrupted contest, maintained a stoic composure, his hands clasped behind his back. His rival, a wiry older man named Takeda Isamu, fidgeted slightly, adjusting the angle of a miniature stone lantern within his landscape. Okubo Toshimichi, his elaborate robes now slightly damp around the hem, stepped forward onto the raised platform. He surveyed the crowd with a shrewd gaze, letting the silence stretch taut before he spoke. His voice, amplified by the natural acoustics of the enclosed space, carried clearly through the remnants of the drizzle. "Honorable guests, esteemed judges, loyal subjects," he began, his tone resonating with authority. "We thank you for your patience during this unforeseen interruption. The heavens have seen fit to test our resolve, but the spirit of artistry perseveres." He paused, letting his words hang in the air, before turning his attention to the two bonsai masters. He circled their creations slowly, his expression inscrutable. The crowd held its breath, a collective anticipation radiating outwards. Hideyasu, his jaw clenched, watched Okubo's every move, a flicker of hope still burning in his eyes. "Both Master Yuki and Master Takeda have demonstrated exceptional skill and artistry in their creations," Okubo continued, his voice even and measured. "Their dedication to the art of bonsai is evident in every carefully placed branch, every meticulously chosen stone. The judges have deliberated carefully, considering not only the aesthetic qualities of each landscape, but also the philosophical and symbolic elements they embody." Another pregnant pause, the tension almost palpable. Hideyasu straightened his back, his breath catching in his throat. "And so," Okubo declared, his voice rising slightly, "the winner of this year's Imperial Bonsai Competition is Master Takeda Isamu." A ripple of surprise, then disappointment, washed through the crowd. Murmurs erupted from the spectators, some expressing disbelief, others nodding in reluctant agreement. Hideyasu's shoulders slumped almost imperceptibly, his face a mask of controlled disappointment. He offered a stiff bow to Takeda, who beamed, accepting the accolades with a mixture of humility and triumph. Okubo, however, remained impassive. He watched the reactions of the crowd with a calculating gaze, his mind far beyond the confines of the bonsai competition. He knew the decision would be unpopular. Yuki Hideyasu was a favorite, a rising star in the world of bonsai, known for his innovative techniques and bold artistic choices. His loss was a surprise, even to some of the judges. But Okubo's decision was not based solely on artistic merit. It was a calculated political move. Takeda Isamu, while a skilled bonsai master, was also a close associate of a powerful daimyo, who had been wavering in his support for the new Meiji government. This victory, a seemingly small gesture, was a strategic play for loyalty, a subtle reinforcement of alliances in a time of great political uncertainty. Okubo knew that the murmurs of disappointment would soon fade, replaced by the whispers of political maneuvering and the solidifying of power. The awarding of the prize, a finely crafted gold trowel, was a brief affair. Takeda accepted it with gracious words of thanks, praising his opponent's skill and acknowledging the honor of the victory. Hideyasu, though clearly disheartened, maintained his composure, offering polite congratulations. As the crowd dispersed, chattering amongst themselves, Okubo retreated to a private chamber overlooking the arena. He watched the dwindling figures below, the remnants of the rain glistening on the cobblestones. He knew the whispers would soon begin, the speculation about his motives, the analysis of the political implications. He sipped his tea, the warm liquid a comforting weight in his hand. The bonsai competition, though seemingly a simple artistic contest, was just another piece in the complex game of power he was playing. Every move, every decision, carried weight, held meaning beyond the surface. He had chosen Takeda not because he believed his bonsai was superior, but because he knew the impact the victory would have on the delicate balance of power in the newly restored imperial court. The rain had stopped, the contest was over, but the real game had just begun. The whispers would grow louder, the alliances would shift, and Okubo, the master strategist, would be there, watching, waiting, and making his next move. He had planted a seed with this decision, a small seed of political influence, and he knew, with unwavering certainty, that it would grow. He just had to be patient. The fruits of his labor, like the meticulously cultivated bonsai trees, would take time to ripen. But when they did, they would be worth the wait. The rhythmic thud of taiko drums still echoed faintly in Iroha's ears, a fading pulse beneath the sudden quiet that had fallen over the arena. The crowd dispersed, a swirling eddy of vibrant colors and excited chatter, leaving behind a strange stillness in its wake. Confetti drifted down like colorful snow, settling on the polished wooden floor. The scent of pine needles from the recent New Year's decorations still clung to the air. Iroha ignored the congratulatory slaps on her back, the praise ringing hollow in her ears. Her victory felt insignificant, almost meaningless. Her eyes scanned the emptying space, searching. She spotted him near the edge of the arena, a solitary figure amidst the receding tide of spectators. Yuki Hideyasu stood with his back to her, his shoulders slumped, the vibrant blue of his hakama a splash of color against the muted backdrop of the arena wall. He seemed smaller now, somehow. The imposing presence he'd commanded during the kendo match diminished. He was alone, the boisterous support of his classmates having long since dissipated. Iroha hesitated. What was she doing? She'd just won. Shouldn't she be celebrating? Basking in the glow of victory? Yet the urge to speak to him, to acknowledge something beyond the competition, was too strong to ignore. Taking a deep breath, she started towards him, her geta clicking softly against the wooden floor. He didn't seem to hear her approach. As she drew closer, she noticed the slight tremor in his shoulders. He was crying, not openly sobbing, but the silent, choked-back tears of someone struggling to maintain composure. Iroha's heart clenched. She had expected to find disappointment, perhaps even anger, but this raw vulnerability was unexpected. "Hideyasu-san?" she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. He stiffened, his head snapping up. He quickly wiped at his face with the back of his sleeve, a gesture that was both childish and heartbreaking. He turned to face her, his eyes red-rimmed and glistening. A flicker of surprise, quickly replaced by a guarded expression, crossed his face. "Inoue-san," he acknowledged, his voice tight. "Congratulations." The formality felt strange, a stark contrast to the intensity of their earlier exchange during the match. Iroha offered a small, almost apologetic smile. "Thank you," she replied. She paused, unsure how to proceed. The usual platitudes felt hollow, inappropriate. "You fought well," she said finally, the words simple but sincere. He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Not well enough." Iroha shook her head. "It wasn't about winning or losing. Not entirely," she said, surprising herself with the admission. She hadn't realized it until this moment, hadn't fully processed the shift in her perspective. Winning had been her sole focus for weeks, months even. But now, standing before him, seeing his vulnerability, the victory felt hollow. Hideyasu looked at her, his expression questioning. Your spirit, Iroha continued, searching for the right words. Your courage. It was inspiring. A faint blush colored his cheeks. He looked down at his feet, shuffling them slightly. I lost, he mumbled, his voice barely audible. You fought with everything you had, Iroha insisted, stepping closer. That's what matters. He finally met her gaze, his eyes searching hers. The guarded expression had softened, replaced by a flicker of something akin to understanding. I was afraid, he admitted quietly, the confession hanging in the air between them. Terrified, actually, of failing, of disappointing everyone. Iroha nodded, understanding his fear all too well. The pressure to succeed, the weight of expectations, it could be crushing. She had carried that burden herself for so long. I know, she said softly. I was too. He looked at her, surprised. You? Iroha smiled, a genuine smile this time. Yes. I was so focused on winning, I forgot why I started kendo in the first place. It wasn't about the trophies or the recognition. It was about the challenge, pushing myself. And you, she added, her voice barely a whisper, you reminded me of that. A long silence stretched between them, filled only with the soft rustle of the discarded confetti and the distant murmur of the retreating crowd. The tension that had crackled between them during the match had dissipated, replaced by a strange, almost fragile intimacy. I admired your strength, Hideyasu said finally, his voice gaining confidence. Your determination. And I admired yours, Iroha replied, meeting his gaze. You never gave up. Even when you were clearly outmatched, you kept fighting. He smiled then, a real smile that reached his eyes, transforming his face. It was a beautiful smile, Iroha thought, and her heart skipped a beat. Thank you, he said, the words simple but heartfelt. For saying that. Another silence fell between them, but this time it wasn't awkward or strained. It was comfortable, a shared understanding passing between them without the need for words. I should go, Iroha said finally, breaking the silence. She felt a strange reluctance to leave, a desire to prolong this unexpected connection. Yes, Hideyasu agreed, a hint of regret in his voice. They turned to walk away, their paths diverging. Then, after a few steps, Iroha paused and looked back. Hideyasu-san, she called out. He turned, his expression questioning. Maybe we could spar sometime? She suggested, the words tumbling out before she could second-guess herself. Just for practice, of course. His face lit up. I'd like that very much, he replied, his smile widening. And as Iroha walked away, the fading echoes of the taiko drums replaced by a newfound lightness in her heart. She realized that winning wasn't everything. Sometimes the most valuable victories were the ones fought within oneself, and the greatest rewards were the unexpected connections forged in the midst of competition. The sting of defeat lingered, a dull ache beneath Yuki Hideyasu's ribs. He'd come so close, his arrows whistling past the target with agonizing near misses. The cheers for the victor, while deserved, echoed in his ears like a mocking reminder of his own shortcomings. He sat apart from the celebratory bustle, the taste of dust and disappointment thick in his mouth. He hadn't noticed Iroha approach until her shadow fell across him. Hideyasu, she said softly, her voice a gentle counterpoint to the boisterous atmosphere. He looked up, surprised to see her. He'd half expected to be left alone to wallow. I failed, he muttered, the words heavy with self-reproach. Iroha knelt beside him, her expression thoughtful. Did you? She asked, her gaze steady. You shot with skill and precision. Victory isn't the only measure of a warrior's worth. Her words, though simple, offered a surprising balm to his bruised ego. He knew she wasn't simply offering empty platitudes. Iroha, with her quiet strength and unwavering spirit, had a way of seeing beyond the surface, of understanding the deeper currents that flowed beneath. I wanted to win, he admitted, his voice still laced with a touch of bitterness. And you will, Iroha said, her voice filled with quiet confidence. Perhaps not today, but your dedication and spirit will carry you far. She paused, then added, true strength lies not just in hitting the mark, but in the courage to rise after a fall. Her words resonated deep within him, rekindling a spark of hope he hadn't realized had flickered out. He looked at her, a genuine smile finally breaking through the clouds of his disappointment. "Thank you, Iroha," he said, the sincerity of his gratitude evident in his tone. He reached into the folds of his kimono, retrieving a long, slender object wrapped in silk. I have something for you." Iroha's eyes widened slightly as he carefully unwrapped the silk, revealing a longbow of exquisite craftsmanship. The wood, polished to a rich sheen, was the color of warm honey, inlaid with intricate patterns of silver and mother-of-pearl. The grip was wrapped in finely braided leather, perfectly contoured to fit a hand. It was a work of art, a testament to the hours of meticulous work he had poured into it. "Hideyasu," Iroha breathed, her voice hushed with awe. It's beautiful." "It's yours," he said, offering it to her. "I crafted it myself." He watched as she gently took the bow, her fingers tracing the delicate inlays. She ran her hand along the smooth curve of the wood, her touch reverent. He knew she understood the significance of the gift. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a symbol of his respect, his admiration, and perhaps something more. "The wood is from a sacred yew tree," he explained, his voice soft, "said to possess the spirit of a great warrior. The grip is wrapped in the hide of a snow leopard, for strength and agility." He pointed to the silver inlays. "These are depictions of the constellations, guiding the arrows true." Iroha listened intently, her eyes shining with appreciation. She lifted the bow, testing its weight and balance. A small smile played on her lips. "It feels perfect," she murmured. He showed her how to string it, the smooth, oiled wood sliding effortlessly against the silken cord. He explained the nuances of its construction, the subtle details that gave the bow its unique power and accuracy. He spoke of the hours spent shaping the wood, honing the curves, ensuring the perfect balance. He spoke of the prayers he whispered as he worked, imbuing the bow with his own hopes and dreams. As he spoke, a comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the gentle hum of the festival in the distance. He realized he wasn't just explaining the mechanics of the bow, he was sharing a part of himself. He was revealing the dedication, the patience, the passion that resided within him, qualities that often went unseen beneath his quiet exterior. Iroha listened with rapt attention, absorbing not only his words but the unspoken emotions that lay beneath. She saw the artist in him, the craftsman, the warrior. She saw the depth of his character, the strength of his spirit. And in that moment, she understood the true meaning of his gift. It wasn't just a beautiful weapon, it was a piece of his heart, offered freely and without reservation. "Thank you, Hideyasu," she said again, her voice thick with emotion. "It's the most precious gift I've ever received." He looked at her, his heart swelling with a warmth that had nothing to do with victory or defeat. He had poured his heart and soul into crafting this bow, and to see it held in her hands, cherished and understood, was a reward far greater than any prize. He knew with a certainty that settled deep within his bones that the true victory wasn't the one measured by arrows and targets, but the quiet, unspoken connection that now existed between them. The gift of the longbow was more than just a gesture of respect and admiration. It was the beginning of something profound, something that held the promise of blooming into something beautiful and enduring. The oiled wood, still warm from the Bowyer's hands, felt strangely comforting in Iroha's grasp. It wasn't just a finely crafted yumi, a weapon of exquisite beauty. It was a symbol, a silent promise forged in the heart of Kyoto's bustling marketplace. Lady Chayo's words echoed in her ears, a gentle whisper amidst the cacophony of merchants and bartering townsfolk. "May it serve you well, Iroha-san. May it guide your arrows true." Iroha met the noblewoman's gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. She dipped her head in a respectful bow, her fingers tightening around the smooth grip of the bow. "I will honor it, Lady Chiyo." The bow itself was a masterpiece. Crafted from aged mulberry wood, its limbs were reinforced with bamboo and lacquered to a deep, lustrous sheen. The grip was wrapped in supple deerskin, perfectly molded to her hand. It was a weapon worthy of a warrior, a tool crafted with skill and imbued with a silent power. But it was more than just a weapon. It was a bridge between two women from vastly different worlds, united by a shared desire for change within the stifling confines of Kyoto's court. Iroha, A commoner, a Bowyer by trade, known for her unmatched skill in crafting weapons of unparalleled quality. Lady Chiyo, a woman of noble birth, trapped within the gilded cage of courtly life, her sharp intellect and keen observations masked by a facade of polite deference. Their paths should never have crossed, yet here they were, standing amidst the swirling dust and vibrant colors of the marketplace, forging an alliance as unlikely as it was potent. Later that evening, under the cloak of a star-strewn sky, Iroha sat in the small courtyard behind her workshop, the new bow resting across her lap. The gift wasn't merely a gesture of goodwill. It was a carefully considered move in a game of subtle influence and hidden agendas. Lady Chiyo needed someone on the inside, someone with skills that extended beyond the refined arts of calligraphy and courtly dance. She needed someone who understood the language of strategy, the weight of a well-aimed arrow. Iroha, in turn, needed a patron, someone with the power and influence to navigate the treacherous currents of the court, someone who could open doors that would otherwise remain forever closed to a commoner like herself. She ran her fingers along the bow's smooth curve, a slow smile spreading across her face. This was more than just a partnership. It was a gamble that could either elevate her to unforeseen heights or shatter her dreams against the unyielding walls of tradition. Their first meeting, a seemingly chance encounter at the marketplace, had been anything but. Lady Chiyo, drawn to Iroha's skill and reputation, had sought her out under the guise of admiring her craftsmanship. Their conversation, veiled in polite pleasantries, had quickly delved into the deeper currents of courtly politics, the unspoken tensions simmering beneath the surface of elegant kimonos and painted smiles. Lady Chiyo had spoken of the emperor's failing health, the growing influence of certain factions within the court, the whispers of rebellion brewing in the distant provinces. She had spoken of the need for change, for a new balance of power, and in Iroha's steady hands and unwavering gaze, she had seen a potential ally. Now, as Iroha strung the bow, the silken cord singing a soft melody in the night air, she knew the true weight of Lady Chiyo's gift. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol of their shared purpose, a tangible representation of the alliance they had forged. The following weeks saw a subtle shift in their interactions. What began as casual encounters in the marketplace evolved into clandestine meetings, held in the quiet solitude of tea gardens and hidden shrines. They spoke in hushed tones, their words carefully chosen, their plans meticulously laid out. Iroha, with her intimate knowledge of the city's underbelly and her network of informants, provided Lady Chiyo with valuable intelligence. She gathered information on the movements of key figures within the court, the whispers of discontent amongst the city's merchants, the growing unrest among the common folk. Lady Chiyo, in turn, used her position and influence to subtly manipulate events within the court, shifting alliances, planting seeds of doubt, subtly guiding the flow of power in their favor. She used her sharp wit and social graces to gather information from unsuspecting nobles, gleaning insights into their motivations and hidden agendas. Their alliance was a delicate dance, a carefully orchestrated performance played out on the grand stage of Kyoto. They moved with grace and precision, their actions veiled in secrecy, their motives hidden beneath a veneer of polite decorum. It wasn't easy. The court was a viper's nest of whispers and intrigue, where every smile could hide a dagger and every word could be a weapon. But Iroha and Lady Chiyo navigated the treacherous currents with a skill born of necessity and fueled by a shared desire for change. They were two unlikely forces, a commoner and a noblewoman, bound together by a common goal. Their alliance, forged in the heart of Kyoto, was a testament to the power of shared purpose, a beacon of hope in a city steeped in tradition and shadowed by intrigue. As the days turned into weeks, their bond deepened, their trust solidified. They were no longer just allies, they were friends, confidants, two women united by a shared destiny, ready to reshape the very fabric of Kyoto's power structure. The bow, a symbol of their alliance, remained a constant reminder of the journey they had embarked upon, a silent promise of the changes they were determined to bring. Okubo Toshimichi watched from the shadows, his gaze sharp and calculating. The fragile alliance between the master Bowyer, Masamune, and the enigmatic courtesan, Iroha, had not escaped his notice. It was a delicate dance, two disparate figures drawn together by a mutual need, Masamune for patronage, Iroha for security in the treacherous currents of the court. But Okubo saw something more, a potential he could harness, a string he could pluck to create a melody entirely his own. He understood the power of symbols, the sway of influence, and in this unlikely pairing, he saw the raw materials of a masterful gambit. Masamune, his hands gnarled and calloused from years of shaping wood and sinew, was an artist trapped in a craftsman's world. His bows were legendary, whispered about in hushed tones amongst the samurai elite. Each piece was a masterpiece, a testament to his unwavering dedication. But talent alone could not guarantee success in the gilded cage of the imperial court. He needed a patron, someone with the ear of the emperor, someone who could elevate him from mere artisan to revered craftsman. Iroha, with her porcelain skin and eyes that held the wisdom of 1,000 lifetimes, moved through the court like a phantom. Her beauty was a weapon, her wit a shield. She knew the secrets whispered in darkened corridors, the unspoken desires that fueled the machinations of power. She understood the fragility of her position, the precarious balance she maintained, and the constant threat of being discarded like a wilted blossom. Okubo saw the unspoken agreement between them, the delicate balance of power. Masamune provided Iroha with exquisite gifts, works of art disguised as weapons, symbols of her status and influence. In return, Iroha used her connections to whisper praises of Masamune's skill, ensuring his name reached the ears of those who mattered. Okubo's plan was subtle, a whisper in the wind, a ripple in a still pond. He began by sending discreet gifts to Masamune, rare woods salvaged from ancient temples, silks imbued with dyes only known to forgotten masters. These were not mere presents. They were tokens of respect, acknowledgments of his artistry, subtle hints of potential patronage. He then orchestrated seemingly chance encounters with Iroha, brief conversations filled with veiled compliments and carefully chosen words of admiration. He painted a picture of a future where Masamune's talent would be truly recognized, where his name would be etched in the annals of history. He played on their individual insecurities, their unspoken fears. To Masamune, he hinted at the fickle nature of courtly favor, the fleeting nature of Iroha's influence. To Iroha, he subtly suggested that Masamune's loyalty was tied to his ambition, that a more powerful patron could easily sway his allegiance. He sowed seeds of doubt, nurturing them with carefully crafted whispers and veiled insinuations. He presented himself as a solution, a bridge between their desires and their realities. He offered Masamune the patronage he craved, the recognition his talent deserved. He offered Iroha security, a position of influence that transcended the whims of the court. He promised them both a future far brighter than anything they could achieve alone. The dance continued, but the rhythm had changed. The two figures, once drawn together by mutual need, now found themselves subtly manipulated, their movements influenced by an unseen hand. Okubo, the puppeteer, pulled the strings with deft precision, orchestrating their every interaction, guiding them towards his desired outcome. He arranged a meeting, a seemingly chance encounter at a moon viewing party. Masamune, his pride piqued by Okubo's subtle flattery, was eager to display his latest masterpiece, a bow crafted from the rare wood gifted by Okubo himself. Iroha, her curiosity piqued by Okubo's veiled promises, attended, her eyes constantly searching for the hidden meaning behind his words. The night air was thick with unspoken tension. Masamune presented the bow, its polished surface gleaming in the moonlight. Iroha, her fingers tracing the intricate carvings, praised its beauty, her voice laced with a hint of uncertainty. Okubo watched, a faint smile playing on his lips. He stepped forward, his voice smooth and reassuring. He spoke of Masamune's genius, his unparalleled skill, his rightful place amongst the greatest artisans of the empire. He spoke of Iroha's grace, her influence, her ability to shape the course of history. He spoke of a future where their combined talents could reshape the very fabric of the court. His words were carefully chosen, each syllable a calculated move in his intricate game. He offered them a partnership, a shared vision of power and influence. He offered them a place at his side, a position of prominence in the new order he was slowly crafting. The bait was set, the trap sprung. Masamune, blinded by the promise of recognition, accepted Okubo's offer, his loyalty subtly shifting. Iroha, seduced by the promise of security, agreed, her allegiance subtly realigned. The three figures stood together, bathed in the moonlight, a new alliance forged in the heart of the imperial court. But beneath the surface, the currents of power shifted, the balance of influence subtly altered. Okubo's gambit had paid off. He had woven a web of intrigue, ensnaring two key players in his intricate plot. The dance continued, but now Okubo led, his hand firmly on the reins of power. He had brought them together, not for their benefit, but for his own, their intertwined destinies now serving his grand design. The scholar's plot had begun. The scent of cedar and lacquer hung heavy in the air, mingling with the charcoal smoke curling from the brazier. Yuki Hideyasu, his brow furrowed in concentration, meticulously applied another layer of varnish to the longbow stave. It was a piece of exquisite craftsmanship, the wood a deep, rich brown, the grain shimmering like trapped sunlight. Each curve, each detail, spoke of hours poured into its creation, a testament to his skill and dedication. But it was more than just a weapon. It was becoming a symbol. Iroha watched him from the doorway, her kimono a splash of vibrant color against the muted tones of the workshop. The flickering lamplight danced in her eyes, reflecting a blend of admiration and determination. Hideyasu's talent was undeniable, yet he remained unknown, his masterpieces hidden away in this small workshop. It was time for that to change. The whispers of discontent amongst the daimyo, the growing unease with the shogun's tightening grip, provided the perfect opportunity. The longbow, a weapon of such power and precision, could become more than a tool of war. It could become a symbol of defiance, a rallying point for those who yearned for freedom. And Hideyasu, the master craftsman, could become their artisan of resistance. "It is magnificent, Hideyasu-san," Iroha said softly, stepping into the workshop. He startled slightly, a faint blush rising on his cheeks. "Iroha-sama, I did not hear you enter. Forgive me, I did not wish to disturb your work." She approached the bow, her fingers tracing the elegant curve of the limb. "This is more than just a weapon. It is a work of art." Hideyasu bowed his head, a flicker of pride in his eyes. "You are too kind. Kindness has nothing to do with it. It is the truth." Iroha straightened, her expression hardening with resolve. "This bow, it needs to be seen, by the right people." Hideyasu looked at her, confusion clouding his features. "I do not understand. The daimyo, many are unhappy with the shogun's rule. They seek a symbol, something to rally behind. This," she gestured to the bow, "could be that symbol." Hideyasu's eyes widened in comprehension, then narrowed in apprehension. "But to be involved in such matters, it is dangerous." "Indeed," Iroha agreed, her voice low and steady. "But remaining silent can be just as dangerous. And your skill, it deserves recognition. It deserves to be used for something greater than simply hunting game." Iroha began her campaign subtly. She spoke of Hideyasu's skill in hushed tones at court, letting word of his exquisite craftsmanship drift through the halls of power like whispers on the wind. She arranged for one of his bows to be accidentally discovered by a prominent daimyo known for his appreciation of fine weaponry. The daimyo, captivated by the bow's beauty and power, commissioned Hideyasu to craft a set for his personal guard. The whispers grew louder. Other daimyo, eager to emulate their peer, sought out Hideyasu, vying for his attention and his creations. Each commission, each finely crafted bow that left his workshop, became another arrow of influence, silently striking at the heart of the shogun's authority. Hideyasu, initially hesitant, found himself swept along by the tide of events. The fear remained, a constant undercurrent of anxiety, but it was overshadowed by a growing sense of purpose. He was no longer just a craftsman. He was a part of something larger, something important. He poured his heart and soul into every bow he created, knowing that each one was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of hope, a testament to the quiet resistance that simmered beneath the surface of the shogun's seemingly unyielding control. Iroha, meanwhile, continued to orchestrate events from behind the scenes. She carefully cultivated relationships, using her charm and wit to gain access to information and influence decisions. She ensured that Hideyasu's bows found their way into the hands of the most influential and discontented daimyo, subtly fanning the flames of rebellion. The shogun's spies, ever vigilant, began to take notice. Rumors reached the shogun's ears of a master craftsman, a maker of exceptional bows, whose creations were becoming increasingly popular amongst the daimyo. He sensed a threat, a subtle shift in the balance of power, and ordered an investigation. Iroha, anticipating such a move, had already taken precautions. Hideyasu's workshop was ostensibly a simple craftsman's shop, producing bows for hunting and sport. There was no overt evidence of any subversive activity. The true purpose of his work, the symbolism embedded within each carefully crafted bow, remained hidden, understood only by those who knew where to look. The investigation yielded nothing concrete, but the shogun's suspicions remained. He knew instinctively that something was brewing, that the whispers of discontent were coalescing into something more tangible, more dangerous. He tightened his grip, increasing surveillance, cracking down on any hint of dissent. But the arrows of influence had already been launched, and their impact, though subtle, was undeniable. The seeds of resistance had been sown, and they were beginning to take root. The longbow, once a simple weapon, had become a symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope in the gathering darkness. And Hideyasu, the humble craftsman, had become, unwittingly, a key player in the unfolding drama, his arrows silently shaping the destiny of a nation. The crisp air of the early morning bit at Okubo's cheeks as he surveyed the bustling Kyoto streets from his window. Merchants hawked their wares, children chased stray dogs, and samurai, still clinging to remnants of their fading power, strode with a practiced swagger. But beneath this veneer of normalcy, a current of change was surging, a current he, Okubo Toshimichi, had subtly manipulated into existence. The fragile alliance between the Satsuma and Choshu domains, once bitter rivals, was solidifying. His gambit was paying off. A thin smile played on his lips. He'd come a long way from the fiery young samurai, quick to draw his sword. The years had tempered him, honed his intellect into a weapon far more potent than any blade. He was no longer just a judge, dispensing justice according to the antiquated laws of a dying regime. He was a player in the grand game of power, a manipulator of events, shaping the destiny of Japan itself. The Satsuma and Choshu lords, once locked in a cycle of violence and mistrust, now found themselves united by a common enemy, the Bakufu, the crumbling shogunate that clung desperately to its waning authority. Okubo, recognizing this shared animosity, had subtly nurtured their nascent alliance, fanning the flames of their resentment while appearing to remain neutral. He'd planted seeds of doubt, whispered suggestions, and orchestrated seemingly chance encounters. He'd played the role of the impartial advisor, offering counsel to both sides, all the while nudging them towards a common goal. He remembered the clandestine meetings, shrouded in secrecy, the hushed whispers in dimly lit rooms. He'd played on their fears, their ambitions, their shared desire for a stronger Japan. He'd reminded the Satsuma of the Choshu's naval strength, a vital asset in the face of the growing foreign threat. He'd emphasized to the Choshu the Satsuma's influence within the imperial court, a key to legitimizing their rebellion. He'd woven a web of intrigue so intricate, so subtly crafted, that few suspected his hand in the growing alliance. He was the spider at the center, unseen, yet controlling the delicate threads of fate. He hadn't forced their hands, he'd merely guided them, subtly influencing their decisions, until they believed the alliance was their own idea, a testament to their own political acumen. The irony wasn't lost on him. He, a man of Satsuma, was instrumental in forging an alliance that would ultimately challenge the very foundations of the samurai class, his own class. But he knew, deep within his pragmatic heart, that the old ways were dying. The Bakufu was a rotting tree, clinging precariously to the cliff edge of history, and Japan needed a new foundation, a new vision. He recalled the initial resistance, the ingrained suspicion between the two clans. The Satsuma, proud and powerful, had viewed the Choshu with disdain, seeing them as rash and impetuous. The Choshu, in turn, resented the Satsuma's perceived arrogance and their close ties to the crumbling Bakufu. Bridging this chasm had required patience, cunning, and a deep understanding of human nature. Okubo had exploited their shared grievances, reminding them of the indignities they'd suffered at the hands of the Bakufu. He'd subtly highlighted the common ground between their respective ideologies, emphasizing their shared desire for a stronger, more unified Japan. He downplayed their differences, focusing instead on the potential benefits of cooperation. His strategy was a delicate dance, a careful balancing act. One wrong move, one misspoken word, could have shattered the fragile trust he was so painstakingly building. He'd had to be everything to everyone, a sympathetic ear to the Satsuma, a strategic advisor to the Choshu, a neutral arbiter between the two. The arrival of Saigo Takamori, his old friend and fellow Satsuma samurai, interrupted his thoughts. Saigo, a man of immense physical presence and unwavering loyalty, entered the room with his characteristic booming laugh. He was a warrior, not a politician, and Okubo often found himself having to explain the nuances of his political maneuvering. "Okubo, I hear whispers of an alliance. Is there truth to these rumors?" Saigo asked, his voice filled with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Okubo met his gaze, his expression carefully neutral. "The winds of change are blowing, Saigo. Old rivalries must be put aside for the good of Japan." Saigo frowned, clearly struggling to grasp the complexities of the situation. "But the Choshu, they are our enemies." "We're our enemies, Saigo," Okubo corrected gently. "Times are changing. We must adapt or be swept away by the tide." He explained the strategic advantages of the alliance, emphasizing the combined strength it would provide against the Bakufu. He appealed to Saigo's patriotism, his unwavering devotion to Japan. Slowly, reluctantly, Saigo began to understand. He might not grasp the intricacies of Okubo's machinations, but he trusted his friend's judgment. As Saigo left, Okubo allowed himself a small sigh of relief. He knew that securing Saigo's support was crucial. His influence within the Satsuma ranks was immense, and his backing would help solidify the alliance. Looking out at the bustling streets once more, Okubo felt a surge of satisfaction. He was no longer merely a judge, bound by the constraints of law and tradition. He was an architect of the future, a manipulator of destiny. The alliance he had so carefully orchestrated was a testament to his cunning, his foresight, his unwavering dedication to a new Japan. The scholar's triumph was at hand. The game was far from over, but he held the winning hand. The crisp air of dawn carried the scent of cedar and pine as Yuki Hideyasu meticulously sanded the belly of a longbow, his brow furrowed in concentration. The rising sun cast long shadows across his small workshop, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. This wasn't just any bow. It was a testament to years of dedicated practice, a culmination of inherited knowledge and a relentless pursuit of perfection. The wood, salvaged from a lightning-struck cedar deep in the mountains, resonated with a low hum under his touch, a promise of the power it held within. His reputation had begun to blossom. It started subtly, a whisper amongst the archers of the local dojo. They spoke of a young Bowyer, tucked away in a forgotten corner of the city, who crafted weapons unlike any they had seen. His bows were not mere instruments of war, but living extensions of the archer's will, imbued with a balance and grace that defied explanation. Each curve, each carefully placed knot, spoke of an intimate understanding of the wood, a reverence for the ancient craft. Where other bowyers prioritized function over form, Hideyasu saw no distinction. He believed that true power resided in the harmony of both. His bows possessed a fluid elegance, their lines flowing seamlessly from grip to tip. He inlaid the sayas, the tips of the bow, with polished bone, carved with intricate patterns of swirling dragons and mythical beasts. The grips, fashioned from supple leather and wrapped with silk cord, fit perfectly in the hand, an extension of the archer's own body. His name began to spread beyond the confines of the city walls. Traveling merchants, their ears always attuned to the whispers of the marketplace, carried tales of Hideyasu's craftsmanship to neighboring provinces. Samurai lords, ever in search of an advantage on the battlefield, dispatched messengers with requests, their missives brimming with promises of gold and patronage. Even the imperial court, known for its refined tastes and appreciation for the finer things in life, took notice. Hideyasu, however, remained unmoved by the growing clamor for his work. He toiled tirelessly in his workshop, oblivious to the accolades and the whispers. He wasn't driven by wealth or fame, but by a deep-seated passion for his craft. Each bow was a challenge, a puzzle to be solved, a way to push the boundaries of his own skill. He spent hours studying the grain of the wood, searching for hidden flaws and imperfections, coaxing the material to reveal its true potential. He experimented with different types of wood, blending the flexibility of bamboo with the strength of oak, the resilience of elm with the lightness of cedar. He developed new techniques for curing and shaping the wood, using carefully controlled fires and steam to enhance its natural properties. He learned to imbue his bows with a spirit, a subtle energy that resonated with the archer who wielded it. One evening, as the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, a high-ranking samurai, clad in ornate armor and accompanied by a retinue of guards, arrived at Hideyasu's workshop. He had traveled for days, drawn by the rumors of the Bowyer's exceptional skill. He carried with him a request from the emperor himself, a bow not for war, but for a ceremonial hunt, a bow worthy of the imperial hand. Hideyasu listened patiently as the samurai outlined the emperor's requirements. He spoke of the need for a bow that was both powerful and elegant, a weapon that reflected the majesty and authority of the imperial throne. Hideyasu accepted the commission, his eyes gleaming with a quiet intensity. This was not just another bow, it was an opportunity to create a masterpiece, a work of art that would transcend the mundane and enter the realm of legend. He spent months working on the imperial bow, pouring all his skill and passion into its creation. He selected a piece of aged yew, its wood dark and dense, imbued with the strength of centuries. He carved the grip from the antler of a sacred deer, its surface polished to a mirror sheen. He inlaid the scias with gold and jade, depicting scenes of mythical hunts and celestial beings. When the bow was finally finished, it was a thing of breathtaking beauty. It possessed a power that was palpable, a grace that was almost ethereal. The samurai, upon seeing it, was speechless. He knew that he stood in the presence of something truly extraordinary. The emperor, upon receiving the bow, was equally awestruck. He held it in his hands, feeling the weight of its power, the smoothness of its curves. He knew that this was not just a weapon. It was a symbol of his own authority, a testament to the skill and artistry of his people. Hideyasu's name spread throughout the land, his reputation cemented as the greatest bowyer of his time. He had become more than a craftsman. He had become an artist, a legend whose name would be whispered in reverence for generations to come. Yet, in his humble workshop, amidst the shavings of cedar and pine, he remained unchanged. He continued to toil tirelessly, driven not by fame or fortune, but by the unwavering pursuit of his craft, the endless quest for the perfect bow. He understood that true artistry lay not in the recognition, but in the dedication, the relentless pursuit of excellence that transformed ordinary wood into something extraordinary, something imbued with spirit and life. The lanterns dim. Their soft glow, once painting the paper walls with dancing shadows, fades to embers. The whispers of Kyoto, the rustling of silk, the clinking of sake cups, all quiet into the hushed murmur of a city breathing in its sleep. Cherry blossoms, pale ghosts in the twilight, drift on the breeze, their petals brushing against the eaves, a soft, silken whisper against the wood. You find yourself drifting too, lulled by the rhythm of the city, the gentle sway of the branches, the distant, almost imperceptible hum that is Kyoto at rest. Remember the poetry contest? The lanterns strung between the cherry trees, casting a warm glow on the upturned faces of the crowd. Remember the hushed anticipation, the rustling of fans as each poet stepped forward? It wasn't just about the verses, the carefully crafted metaphors, the elegant turns of phrase. It was about the connections forged in the shared appreciation of beauty, the whispered promises exchanged in stolen glances, the strange, intricate ways fate and choice intersect under the moonlight. Okubo Toshimichi, his face illuminated by the flickering lantern light, his voice calm and measured as he recited his poem. His words, sharp and precise, spoke of duty, of loyalty, of the burden of leadership. But beneath the surface, beneath the carefully constructed facade, there was a flicker of something else, a hint of the turbulent emotions churning within. His calculations, the meticulous plans he laid for the future of Japan, weren't just numbers on a page, cold and impersonal. They were ripples in the pond of Kyoto, spreading outwards, touching every life, shaping the destiny of a nation. Each decision, each carefully considered move, a ripple expanding, intersecting with others, creating an intricate pattern of cause and effect. And Iroha, her kimono the color of twilight, her voice soft as the falling petals, her poem a delicate tapestry of love and loss. Her smile, offered to each contestant, wasn't just politeness, a social nicety. It was a flicker of possibility, a spark of connection, a silent acknowledgement of shared humanity. In that fleeting moment, The world narrowed to the space between two gazes, a silent conversation held in the language of unspoken words. The air thrummed with unspoken possibilities, with the delicate dance of attraction and apprehension. The rustling of the cherry blossoms seemed to echo the beating of hearts, the silent language of hope. Yuki Hideyasu, standing tall and proud, his longbow strapped to his back, a symbol of his warrior heritage. His poem, raw and powerful, spoke of the clash of steel, the thunder of hooves, the bitter taste of defeat. But it also spoke of courage, of honor, of the unwavering loyalty that bound him to his clan. His longbow wasn't just a weapon, a tool of destruction. It was a bridge between two worlds, a link to the past, a symbol of the traditions he was sworn to protect. It was a testament to the enduring power of the samurai spirit, the unwavering commitment to duty, the fierce pride in heritage. As you drift deeper into the embrace of the night, remember that history isn't just dates and battles, names etched in stone, victories and defeats recorded in dusty scrolls. It's the heartbeats echoing across time, the whispered hopes and fears, the dreams dreamt under a canopy of cherry blossoms. It's the quiet moments of connection, the fleeting glances, the unspoken words that shape the course of lives and nations. It's the rustling of silk, the clinking of sake cups, the soft murmur of voices fading into the night. It's the laughter and the tears, the love and the loss, the joy and the sorrow that make up the tapestry of human experience. It's the weight of tradition, the yearning for change, the constant push and pull between the past and the future. It's the delicate dance of diplomacy, the intricate web of political intrigue, the clash of ideologies that shape the destiny of nations. It's the courage of warriors, the wisdom of elders, the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. History is the whispered Kyoto lullaby, a song woven from the threads of countless lives, a melody that echoes through the ages. It's the story of a city, a nation, a people, their triumphs and tragedies, their hopes and dreams, their struggles and their triumphs. It's a story that continues to unfold, each moment adding a new verse, a new layer of meaning to the ongoing narrative. Sleep now. Let the rhythm of the city lull you into slumber. Let the whispers of the past carry you away on a tide of dreams. Let the soft rustling of the cherry blossoms be your blanket, the gentle hum of the city your lullaby. The cherry blossoms are falling. Silently, gracefully, they drift down from the branches, painting the ground with a delicate carpet of pink and white. Each fallen petal, a whisper of time passing, a reminder of the ephemeral nature of beauty. The lanterns are dimming. Their soft glow fades into the darkness, leaving behind only the faintest glimmer, like embers in a dying fire. The shadows lengthen, stretching across the walls, blurring the lines between the real and the imagined. The city is breathing. A slow, steady rhythm, the heartbeat of a sleeping giant, the hushed murmur of the night, the gentle rustling of the leaves, the distant chime of a temple bell, all blending together into a symphony of tranquility. And history is whispering, secrets and stories, hopes and dreams, carried on the wind, woven into the fabric of the night. Listen closely, and you might hear the echoes of the past, the whispers of the future, the silent song of Kyoto.